Okay, so we are live on YouTube. Sorry, I'm a bit late, everyone. I have class on Mondays, Judaism class, and it is a little bit kind of like a lot. That makes any sense. Okay, let's go live. Okay, we are live on Instagram. See how people filter in. Let's pull up everything here. Theory of Everyone started live. Got some dust on the camera. Okay. Let's pull up my work. How's everybody doing tonight? Good evening, Chris. How's it going? Just waiting for everything to boot up. Today we're going to talk about my overview to Sentient Singularity Theory. And we've got some more of this superposition tea from last time. I don't know if any of you were here. This tea is really high in caffeine and theanine, so it makes you really calm while it gives you energy, which is pretty nice actually. But I brewed it really strong, so we're not going to drink a lot, and also it's a little bitter. It's usually better than it is tonight. It's called Geikiro. So, you know, it's kind of a lot to deal with. But tonight I want to talk about my visual overview. And let me pull that up. Yeah. Because I kind of want to work on making this. Let's show it to you guys who are here. There we go. This is my visual overview. To those of you who are on YouTube, what's that look like? How's that looking? Let me just see. Okay. I guess it actually was showing up almost entirely. How's that looking? Okay, well, pretty good. So yeah, this is the visual overview for Sentient Singularity Theory. Good evening, everyone. I like the 0 in the 1. That's very cool. Nice, Esteban. Very cool. People are getting it. That's very good. I responded to somebody today, and I almost said, like, I almost used that, but I didn't. I forgot. I shouldn't forget. It's my idea, but Esteban remembered, so that's cool. But so this, let me show you guys on Instagram. It might not be the longest stream tonight because getting started a little bit late due to my class, like I said, on Mondays that goes till about 8:30 to 8:45, depending on just when it ends. Can be just kind of a lot. But I still want to get on here at least with you guys a little bit and, you know, just keep up the consistency so you know I'm not, dipping out and slowing down. We're definitely not slowing down. We're only going to be speeding up. I think I'm going to be adding in a Sunday time as well. Sunday afternoon, kind of like very different time than now. So probably like maybe 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think that would be a cool time to just kind of start streaming as well. But this, so I've been working on this visual summary though, and I wanted to kind of go over it with you guys a little bit, show you where the inspiration comes from and what eventually I hope to, get to with this. I think that it's really important that we have the most important models on here so that people can go and reference, one place and just kind of get a basic overview of the most important models to keep an eye out for. Just as they continue to delve into the model. As you can see, this is very high resolution. I can just keep zooming in and it just gets to be very, clear no matter what. One of the interesting things that I did notice, by the way, here is that when I was looking at this verse model, I guess, or like the quantum force assembly, I call it, which a force is just, it's, let me see, maybe I have like you can see here, I basically have for those of you on Instagram, I have these like little magnets, and what's interesting about them, and let me show you guys on YouTube as well. Okay, there we go. So I have these little magnets, and you can see that they're basically all these tiny little individual tiny magnets, okay? And they all fit together. And they're all stuck together and being held together by this electromagnetic force. And that's what holds, magnets together and what allows them to act kind of in unison a little bit, even though it's a collection. It's an assembly, but at the same time, it's kind of, it acts a lot like a solid. Like you can see, it acts like a solid, obviously. It's basically acting as one unit. But, and even as strands, it's funny because as strands, it's kind of like very wiggly. It's like, it matches a lot like the liquid model in my models on Excel of the different states of matter. But what's interesting about this is that it's being held together by one of the fundamental forces, and even though it's a multiplicity, I guess is the point. So like a wave is multiplicity acting in unison. So a multiplicity of beings, and that's really the way to put it because everything is beings acting in unison. So like when you see dominoes, and one domino falls and the next one and the next one and the next one, and it's obviously a wave moving throughout a multiplicity of singular objects. And when we see waves in nature, this is the exact same thing. So when people are like, oh, we got to detect gravity waves, well, what does a gravity wave go through and affect? It affects everything. It's not a wave of little bits of gravitons. It's one graviton just moving, and it impacts every single being that's within it, from you and me to atoms. And this is one of the things that I'm trying to work on, is like, what's the difference between these four fundamental forces? Because the electromagnetic force, the gravitational force, the strong force, and the weak force, they're all actually the same force, but different parts of the same force. And I am trying to model how that differentiation adds up, basically. But that's for another day. But when we look at this wave of growth that occurs for, switch it back. YouTube and Instagram people, you can see that in these various loop spaces, which is, there's a loop and 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 a loop. And each one of these loops within loops is forming a number of these. Somebody told me that they're called halons, which is like a way of looking at a singular object, I guess, philosophically. But when you break them down and you realize that they're part of the E8 structure, and there's 8 periods of growth, each one sums to 31, which is interesting because it's 3 and 1, which is 4. And it's differentiating into a binary because there's oneness and triality. It's just, and there's also, obviously a triality that's manifested in it. So it's just interesting that in 31 we're getting so much information. So in 31 plus 31 plus 31 plus 31 plus 31, 8 times 31 times 8 is 248, which is the number of dimension in E8, essentially. And, that's also the number of positive laws in the Torah, and it's the gematria value of the name Abraham, and there's lots of different things that is special about that number 248, both geometrically and in the realm of physics and in the realm of scripture. But when you break it down and you want to look at it in 2 different ways, I found 2 different equations that add up to 31. And I told you 31 is very interesting because it shows the number of rotational symmetry that Robert Edward Grant discovered to find, not prime numbers. I found them in prime number differences, but he found it in basically showing the decimals in an infinite decimal series. So if you have an infinite decimal series and an irrational number, I believe, basically you can see the number in a string of irrational numbers and then jump into the string. And this probably, I think he said this, but I can see this too, is that it has implications for like jumping through space-time a little bit, which is pretty amazing. But as you can see, it's interesting because, remember, obviously we have, let's go open recent theory of Every0ne. And everybody here should know, hopefully, the 4 primary perspectives that everything forms from. Well, everything forms from God, but then God is able to perceive things. Sorry for that noise, by the way, that horrible noise. I might go shut it off. It's it's actually lizards running around, but I might go feed them so that they shut up. But basically, these 4 primary perspectives are even visible in the breakdown of 31. Hold on one second. But you can take a look at these equations and just kind of look, like these are 2 ways to get 31, and take notice of things that are interesting, like the fact that you can add 1 to a triality of oneness and infinity, or you can add 4 primary perspectives to 9 times a triality, which, obviously we have right here, 9. So it's very interesting, these 2 equations, but let me go give these, they're called chuckwalas, these lizards, and I'm just going to go dump in some food and they'll shut up. Okay, we're back. But they were very funny. They eat just like this, like it's basically Fruity Pebbles. I'm not even joking. It smells exactly like it. It looks exactly like it. But let's see how's YouTube's doing. Hi, Chris. Some rocks. Cool. But yeah, so it's very interesting that these are the two equations that you can break down this into. Somebody's requesting to be in my live. I am not allowing anybody into my live normally right now, but send me a private message, and eventually, like, I do plan on doing a live stream where I do let people in. Sorry though, but right now I do not. If you have any questions, definitely put them into the chat though, and we will talk about them as much as you want. But another day I will be letting people into the live, but just not right now. We're not doing that, but I need to figure out a way to deal with that. But basically, these equations are very interesting. And there's something to do with looking at something objectively and looking at something subjectively. And what's interesting is that I think that I actually messed these up. They might be needing to be reversed, in that this would be the objective way of examining the world, and this would be the subjective way of examining the world, even though this one is from oneness. It's just that this one includes infinity because of the zero, which actually means that it's complicated. This is the way of looking at something in multiplicity. This is the way of looking at something as far as oneness and relativity. Oneness and relativity, though, like I said, we want to be examining the world from the realm of multiplicity, because from the realm of multiplicity we can actually make sense of things and move, categorize things, make sense of the world. But from the realm of oneness, we actually understand, yes, it's very important to know that everything in existence is oneness, a oneness of consciousness, a oneness of sentience, which is God. And it's also important to know that implies also this relativity that we experience the world in, and helps us make sense of it, in our relativistic material goings on. But in the realm of multiplicity, this is the way of looking at it, objectivity. But it's important to know that relativity exists. It's important because it helps us get through, our lives physically the way that we do. It's important to know that oneness exists because it helps us know that that God is one. It's very important that we are all one as well. That's also very important. But this is the way of making sense of the world. And it's because it starts right here with 4 primary perspectives. So I would think it's almost like 2 different perspectives are included here. The perspective of oneness and the perspective of relativity. And then from here, the perspective of multiplicity is achieved. It's very interesting. Let's see what questions we have, but for the moment, no one on Instagram. Like I said, it's going to be kind of a slower night. We're getting started later, and I'm a bit tired, but I want to talk to you guys. But see, whoa, there we go. Hold on, let's do this so that we're not totally confusing everybody. There we go. Okay, so the reason why I decided to make this is because of Stephen Wolfram. And so Stephen Wolfram came up with this. And I think that it's important to show really what we all have in a way that actually makes sense. It can't just be this paper of a bunch of equations that people show that don't make sense to anybody. I really hope Eric Weinstein's paper that he releases in April is not going to be like that, but we'll see. But I did attend, by the way, and I'll talk more about it later this week, a criticism of geometric unity, and it was I don't trust anybody who's any of these people who are criticizing geometric unity, to be honest. They don't understand what they're talking about. I mean, they understand relativistic mathematics, but they don't understand that the rules change in the objective perspective. They don't even know that the objective perspective exists. And so I did listen to them a bit, but, somebody asked them, jumped in and was like, geometric unity, what's the, they were like, I'm a layman, I'm not a physicist. What's the good way of kind of picturing this big picture if you are a layman? And they couldn't answer. Like, they were just trying to talk about things that the layman has no idea about. And the thing is that if you can't, I do agree with that kind of mentality of, like, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, even if the 5-year-old isn't going to get it, but, like, let's say 10-year-old, if you can't explain it to a 10-year-old, then you don't really understand what you're talking about. Nothing is too complicated for a 10-year-old. It really isn't. We just claim that it is when we don't actually want to explain something to a 10-year-old, but that doesn't mean that it's actually too complicated for a 10-year-old. But you can see here, they have Stephen Wolfram and his physics project, which is very similar to mine. I don't understand the language that he uses. I know he made the language for that movie Arrival. He's a physicist, but also went into computers for a long time. But I can tell that he's correct on a lot because I can count the quantities. So I can be like, okay, he's starting here from this, like, infinity symbol almost, which he calls the initial condition, which is essentially, like, you can see he has the center point here, and then there's, it's branching out this way and then coming back in on itself. It's an infinity sign, but he's got the center point, which to me indicates oneness. It's infinite oneness. Okay, and when we're looking at my structure, that's basically what's happening right here, is it's this infinite oneness. And we've got a sum of 1, a count of 4, and you can see that it's like this is 1, this is infinity, and then this is infinite oneness, essentially. Like, it's hard to represent that we don't really have symbols for it. Like, his is made up, I believe. I mean, it's basically an infinity symbol, but you can get the gist of what's going on. Because it has a center point, but it is an infinity symbol. Mine is kind of similar, but you can see in things like my thinking structure over here. Let's go here. Where is it? Decision tree. You can see here where this decision tree is taking effect and it's branching off into a triality. You can also see that here. It's interesting because even here, he's like got 1 and then 2 and then this one is shaded. I don't know why, but like you can see on mine this one and then there's one that like really is important over here, obviously, because that's where a lot more is going on, which I'm guessing is this shaded one. It's very interesting. I can count the quantities and everything going on, and I can tell that there's just, we're getting similar structures here. This looks like it's building a tetrahedron almost. Or it's building through tetrahedrons, starting from infinite oneness. And this looks like a brain, because it is. And his like theory is called the Computational Universe, and it's correct. I mean, this is correct stuff. This isn't wrong. The universe is computing, obviously. It's a quantum computer, and it's doing everything that he's probably mapped out here. But it's not Sentient Singularity Theory, which is much more at the root of just who is reality. Who is reality? Not what is reality. Who is reality? That's very important. His is about what is reality. Mine is about who is reality. Okay, let me see, because we have some questions coming in, it looks like. Res Philosopher is back with us. How's it going? I feel like based on 2 interviews of Weinstein, he's inviting somebody to contribute, like you, to contribute to physics. He totally is, dude. Once he was like, but he also won't speak to me, like publicly, really. But that's at least right now. But maybe one day. But he is. Once he said, he was like, and I asked him about it. Actually, I actually have it recorded. And maybe we'll play it. Actually, we'll play it. But I don't record everything that he says to me, because especially in more private, like Discord conversations, that stuff tends to be like purposely behind kind of closed doors. But if it's on YouTube, it's fair game. Like, I will play it. But I didn't even record it. Brian Keating recorded it. It's on his channel. But I just recorded that one bit because it's in like a multi-hour talk. But he said once, years ago, he was like talking to somebody random on his portal, on the portal, and I forgot who it was, but he said, I think that the next scientific mavericks, are going to be people of faith. And like, I don't like the word faith, but I understand what it's trying to convey. Or religious people. I don't like the word religious people either, but I understand what it's trying to convey. And sure, like, I'll say people who have God as the center of like their work. And I asked him about it, years, like over a year later on Brian Keating's podcast. I was like, you said once many years ago, or like over a year ago, that you thought the next scientific mavericks would be people of faith, essentially, or religious people. And what do you think that those people would have to go through the universities? And let me see if I have it. Weinstein. But he said, he said, like, was his actual word. He said, like, they don't, but they have an uphill battle. So we definitely have an uphill battle. He also talked about, he seems to endorse people outside of physics community and academia contributing. That's cool. I mean, yeah, the barriers they would face without credentials. Yeah, he definitely, he definitely did say that. Chimney Bangers is joining us. By the way, I did see your message, Chimney Bangers. I will get back to you. So, I just have had a lot going on, but I will definitely get back to you. But welcome. Glad to have you here right now. So, but yeah, I mean, he has said that. And, like, we do have an uphill battle. Like, I'm glad everybody here, Res Philosopher, get back to you too. I've got a lot of DMs. I have to get through them, but there definitely seem to be coming from these live streams, which is pretty cool. Like, I'm glad that they're helping, with the continuity of discussion on this, because it's really important to just continue this conversation. But or discussion. I don't really like the term conversation. It was just overused by like the politics people. They were just like, oh, we need these conversations, these great conversations. And there was like lots of funny memes about it, actually. But discussion is like a conversation is a conversation, but a discussion, I like it better because it seems to have like a topic at the center, like a point. So, I don't know where that clip is of Weinstein talking about people of faith contributing to science, but I'll find it. We'll play it tomorrow when we have like a longer stream going and we get started a bit earlier. But I think it's important because I forgot exactly what he said, and we should know because he did say that we have some obstacles, and like I got to remember what those obstacles are if we're going to tackle them. But here, as I showed you guys though, this is my where I'm at right now with this overview. You can see that obviously I kind of got it from let me just make sure that everything's back on here. Yep. Okay, good. The overview, that's mine, and Stephen Wolfram's. It's kind of like, see if we can put them side by side. So I'm not trying to copy anybody. Obviously, these models are very different. Like, they're so different. You can't get one from the other. I don't even really understand exactly how he did his work, and I don't think he would understand right away how I did mine. But we did seem to use like this idea of like cellular automata and starting at infinite oneness, and that tells me that we're, starting at similar things. But this model though, this is much more similar to, from what I understand, this contains the properties of geometric unity seems to reinforce. It's subjectively chiral, objectively symmetrical, 720 degrees of rotation. It's much more objective than any of the structures here in Wolfram's project. Wolfram has found incredible objects, but one of the things that he hasn't found, and I was curious, is he never found the double helix, which I don't understand how he didn't. And I don't think he did. Maybe he did, but like, I looked at all these objects, and he found a lot. I mean, maybe this is the double helix right here. It kind of looks like it could be. Maybe he found it and doesn't know. But some of these things are fascinatingly, familiar, I guess. I mean, he does incredible work. This is amazing. Look at that. That's a 3x3 grid, but it's like it's in 3 dimensions. Looks a lot like mine. But yeah, like I said, we're going to talk about everybody's work. But when I looked through his visual summary, I didn't see anything that was obviously the double helix. This might be the double helix. And this could be it actually looking down on it. Looking down through it. Maybe that. It's tough to, but none of them look obvious. You have to count the quantities because I don't really know, what he was even modeling here. Like I said, I try and avoid everybody else's work to some degree, but his stuff is obvious and easy to see, is like kind of similar to mine, but not exactly. But to go through this, you're starting at the initial existent condition. He called it the initial condition because I think that that's just important. But I added existent because, let me just make sure you guys can see that. Yeah, good. Initial implies like the beginning, but existent implies that it was there. And that's kind of why I added initial existent condition. Maybe the existent condition. It is always there. It's already there. It's kind of important to distinguish that. It's like outside of the beginning there, or beyond the beginning, there's just eternity. And that's infinite oneness. So that's that. 0 is a superposition between oneness and infinity, as you can see. And so this is described philosophically by the 4 primary perspectives, which is a square. It's a square root. Very important. We're going to kind of harp on this a lot as time goes on. Square root is very important. This goes on to the creation calculation structure. So this entire thing here is an equation. That's not even just an equation. This whole thing is a calculating equation. And it's almost like a new way to do math. It's kind of like matrix math, but it's a little different than matrix math. It's kind of incorporating orthogonal, mathematics into it, but it's not even quite that. It's just something else. It's metamathematics. It's beyond the substructure. It's so fascinating. I was listening to Robert Edward Grant give a talk on a private talk on his cryptocurrency. Let me get a drink real quick. And one of the things that he said was that in order to handle the new type of encryption and the new type of code breaking that comes from his new method of code breaking that he basically found, or prime number prediction that he found, that gets incorporated into his one-time pad encryption, you would need a new type of calculator that basically adds and multiplies at the same time, which is this. And he knows that I made this. I sent this to him years ago, the quantum of consciousness, and he got back to me and was like, this is great work, months later. And that was the first time I spoke to him. But I wonder how much he got from this, that concept, which is fine. I sent it to him, I've shared it with the world. If whatever you guys can do with it, do with it. I'm curious to see, I'm not accusing him of anything at all. I discuss his work on here and how I've seen that it relates to my work. And if this was the first time that he saw that, I know it was the first time that he's seen this exact thing, then that's awesome that it was contributing. He definitely, his identification of the importance of the number 31 came up in my prime number differences. This is why I need to talk about everybody's work, because everybody else is ignoring each other, hoping that you don't look. And I want everybody to look, because this is how we're going to see that everybody's right and we can actually move forward. If it's just Team Wolfram versus Team Weinstein versus Team, Tyler versus Team, Lisi or Grant or, Irwin, we're never going to make any progress. We have to realize that we're all on the same team. But we also have to realize that these are all various parts of a sentient singularity. Convergence, emergence, geometric unity. All of these things are aspects and of a conscious being, essentially. You are converging. I am converging. We are emergent in our constraints and degrees of freedom. We are geometric unity. That's why our cells are summing to one being. There's all kinds of way, and consciousness comes from a tetrahedron, which is, that is part of Irwin's theory. And you're computing. You are a computational universe of cells and atoms and molecules, forming all kinds of weird structures, apparently. But so this, as I've described, is the creation structure. It basically shows why triality of perspective is observed as we break existence into creator and creation, into the duality of creator and creation. And naturally emergent is the quantum of consciousness, which goes over here. And then, obviously, the quantum of consciousness goes on to form the universe, which I believe prime numbers have some very important aspect to them that in their differences is forming the multiplicity that we see. I mean, these are not they're not coincidental, like irrelevantly coincidental numbers. This is probably the hardest part of my work, by the way, just so you know. So if I talk about this prime number stuff very vaguely, I am still figuring it out. I cannot claim that I've got this part figured out. This is the hardest part of my work. I can tell that prime numbers, it seems to be that whenever you get a prime, it's almost like that's the creation of a new entity, of a new consciousness. It's like a prime number, you get a consciousness. But I'm still confirming that and figuring that out. But I think that's what it is. It's and if you think about it, like think about what a prime number is. It's a number that's divisible by 1 and by itself. So by 1 and by the multiplicity contained within it. And that's it. Which makes perfect sense as it being like, that is consciousness formed, is a prime number. So 1 and 2, so oneness and creator and creation. And then 3, we've got triality. 4, we've got primary perspectives. That's not a prime number, but it's how we start looking at everything else. And then, you get 5 and we get a prime number again. So oneness and the prime perspectives, the 4 primary perspectives. So like, I think that what's happening is every time you get a prime, you're getting essentially like a totality of, like a summation of the multiplicity into a singularity of consciousness. That's what it is. It's very hard. Like I said, I haven't really spoken about this much yet, this prime number stuff, but I think that's what's happening, based on what I'm seeing. Is it's basically prime numbers are forming consciousnesses on the various levels of existence. So I summed it into here because a lot of these quantities, all the way up to 42, as I've showed you guys, are found in here. And then we can break that down into the united quantum force assembly. So it's a singular force moving through an assembly of quanta, and it is a singular quantum as well. So basically, and then the prime numbers would be like, and governing the rules of any time like a specific number of atoms forms to an assembly of atoms to make a molecule, that would be like governed by prime number mathematics, essentially. And it is kind of like 19, prime number. 19 is the sum of it's the helical diameter of DNA. It's also the internal sum of a quantum of consciousness. It's just fascinating. Is 7... Let's see this. I love this website, by the way. Numbermatics. For anybody who's like into number stuff. Is this prime? Prime. Yep, figured. I knew I was going to get a prime in there, obviously, but like, I knew it was going to be a cool one. I couldn't remember which one it was. 727, that's interesting. It's a number that, you can go forwards and backwards and it doesn't matter. 72, 7, 72, 7. Interesting. What's the sum? 14, 16. You can kind of just look at all the various properties of it. But 727, that's prime. So like, something about that number would be governing when you would get a prime number. Let's see what questions we have. Like I said, this is going to be kind of like a low-key one tonight, but I still want to do it. I love talking to you guys. If the brain is a quantum computer, do we have one of the best heat cooling systems ever made? Thank you, Squishy Mirror. I mean, yes, definitely, but I mean, that's fascinating. I was thinking about that today, actually, Esteban, because one of the things that I was watching was, and I watch it every now and then just because I'm fascinated by it, is, I mean, for any of you that have ever listened to Bob Lazar, like, I listen to Bob Lazar sometimes, and that guy just fascinates me. I believe him very much so. And he was saying that the power source of the craft that they were working on at Area S4 and Area 51. For those of you who don't know, Bob Lazar worked at Area 51, but like a subset of Area 51 where they were supposedly working on flying saucers that had been recovered. And if you look into it, the guy's telling the truth. Like, I'm not saying that they're aliens. They might be like, I think it's more likely that whatever we're seeing is a holdout beings that escaped Earth from, thousands and thousands of years ago from an ancient civilization, like Atlantis type of. I know all non-Lazar, baby. I'm guessing you meant to say all about Lazar, baby. Good. Yeah, Bob Lazar is telling the truth. Yeah, they're space humans. That's what I think. I think that they were from Earth in an ancient civilization pre-cataclysm that escaped, and now they're basically hedonistic leftovers, like, from that. Like, I think that they were, like... I mean, like, guys, like, think about this, okay? Like, think about how people, okay, babies born in space, they're not even born, I don't think. Like, think about this, like, oh man, we're gonna get into some stuff. So, these ships that they have at Area 51, into engineering and physics, I don't think so. I think he worked on them. You think it's BS? It's not BS. I followed that story so closely for over decades that it's from the 90s I was following that story, and I was a little kid, but I was like obsessive because I just saw all the things that were happening to him, and it's not bullshit. Plus, I found an old video from the 90s of him explaining the physics of what they were working on. And if anybody is qualified to look at that, by the way, it's me. Like, you feel like somebody else would speak out? Some people have spoken out. Just they're not... they're ignored. They're just ignored. And he could never verify his degrees. His birth certificate was erased, Res Philosopher. Erased. There's no record of him going anywhere. He's not even just intelligent. I saw videos from the 90s of him explaining. Okay, we're gonna look at it actually because I have it. You can't. It's very hard to find this video because they don't want you to have it. But I can't even find it on my computer. That's weird. That is weird. Let me see. But they erased his birth certificate. They erased all of his education. They like publicized the fact. Basically, I mean, they had brought out the fact that his wife was cheating on him. Like, there was so much to that story. He was for sure not lying. He knew so much that nobody knew at the time. No, like when he came out, nobody even knew what Area 51 really was. Like there was no like alien mythos behind Area 51 that much at the time. Like he started that, and it wasn't really, it didn't exist. Like he came out privately under the pseudonym of his boss, like, which is kind of hilarious. I mean, there was just so much to that story. They literally erased his birth certificate. Like, they almost confirmed his story, which is so funny. Like, he claimed he worked at... so here's a fascinating thing. He claimed that he worked at Los Alamos National Labs. When people called to confirm, they couldn't find any record of it. And they kept saying, no, he didn't work here, he didn't work here. They had to go to the libraries and find old analog snippets from the newspaper that they forgot to erase in order to confirm that he actually worked there. And he was on the front page of the paper for making a Honda Jet car, just like he said. And he also, when they found like I remember when I was a little kid, they used to give out this little spiral notebook that had everybody's phone number who was in the school district who wanted to be in there. And you could contact, Jimmy's parents or whatever like that, because nobody had cell phones at the time. And if you needed to get in touch with anybody who had okayed it and put their number into this Rolodex for the school system that I grew up in, the school district, you could. Well, they erased the digital records of him working there, but what they didn't erase was there were copies of something like that, like a physical, spiral that people had of, this is Bob's phone number in this department, this is so-and-so's phone number in this department, this is so-and-so in this department, and he was in there. Like, the jet car. Yeah, no, he was real. Yeah, he owns like an electronic shop. I don't think that they're aliens, though. I think they were from Earth. I think that the whole thing about them being from Zeta Reticuli or whatever, I don't believe that. I think that that's kind of BS, but I don't think they know that. But I do think that these beings exist. They're flying around all the time and through space-time in weird ways that I think geometric unity is going to show us how to jump through the 14-dimensional observerse a little bit. And Eric Weinstein was asked by Brian Keating, do you believe that there's extraterrestrial beings out there that are flying around? And Eric Weinstein responded with, well, I think they're terrestrial beings, but yes. It's like, okay. Sounds a lot like my theory. And I'm only saying this because it was in a public comment under one of Robert Edward Grant's posts. It wasn't in a private conversation between us. I asked him, do you believe that there was this was early on in me speaking to him. I said, do you believe that there was a ancient civilization that was technologically advanced? And he was like, yes. And I said, do you think that they succeeded or failed? And he said both. And I was like, yep, that's what I think too. Space algae munchers, that's pretty funny. But maybe. Here though, think about this. Bob Lazar said that there's no steering wheel, there's no, there's no way for them to operate this thing, so far as we know, of jumping through space-time, completely, they just kind of test it around the desert. I think that what's happening is that these craft are, and I've never said this publicly, but I'm going to say it now. I had this weird theory that in order to use warp transportation, you need to attach your mind to the craft. And that basically you needed to have Neuralink in your mind in order to control a craft that's jumping through space-time. Because what needs to happen essentially is that the universe, or the, you know, observable universe, or the verse as I call it, or the aeon as Roger Penrose calls it, it is a quantum computer itself, and so is, you know, God and all these, everything contained within it. But that means it's a mind, and like what you need to do is you need to know the structure of that structure, so that you can, and the way that it calculates, in order to basically like think about where you want to go, because that would line up with calculation with that, your mind within the mind. So you need to line up your mind with that mind, and then like you can jump to where you want to be. But you might have to get permission, just so you know. Like, I think it's very important for me to say it too. Like, before you jump through the mind of another being that's higher than you, probably a good idea to get permission. And not saying you can't do it without permission. I'm not saying like you should get permission. Probably, I would think. I don't want somebody jumping through my mind without permission. That sounds like it can be dangerous or like, you know, annoying at the very minimum. So you are the spaceship. Exactly. To use, you are the ship. Like, that's what these people who are examining it do not realize. You are the ship. Like, they are these beings are attaching their minds and controlling the ship through their minds. They have Neuralink chips in their minds. People are like, oh, aliens, they have like telepathy. It's like, you're about to have telepathy. Elon Musk is working on it. He literally put them in pigs. It's like, yeah. What's the planet they say they're from? Zeta Reticuli star system. I forgot the ZR4 or ZR1. I don't know. I don't really believe it. I think they're from wherever we are. Yeah. Glimpse of others hangar one time. Yeah. He saw all that. I believe him 100%. I don't think that he's right about everything that he says. I just think that he really did work on what he worked on, where he said that he worked on it. I totally do. But what's interesting is somebody had said, I got really excited and off track, but somebody had said in the comments, sorry, Esteban, I think, heat cooling system. Bob Lazar said that there was no heat emitted from this this like reactor, and that's what I was saying. Like, why it seems like a mind recycles the heat almost, or at least like in totality. So God recycles the heat that's made as powering other systems. And maybe that's what's happening with this. I don't know. You know, maybe that's what happens with us. We take that heat, we, use it to, keep us warm. It seems highly more likely the UFOs are things the government has worked on. No. Yes, that's true that the government's technology far exceeds civilians' knowledge of it. Absolutely true. But no, this is tech from another civilization. I don't think it's aliens. I think it's leftover humans from a previous civilization that collapsed. And then they escaped to space. And they didn't really escape. They just went there and they're chilling out. But there was this thing called the Fermi Paradox. And it's actually not a paradox. It's a misnomer, and nobody actually has answered it correctly. If there are aliens, I don't think there's very many of them. Or if there's holdovers from previous civilization on Earth that went to space, I don't think there's very many of them. I don't think it's this bustling civilization that's hidden from us, that's doing great. I think they're dying. I think they're just there's increasingly fewer and fewer, and I think that they're living a pretty bleak existence. And the reason why is they basically escaped to relativity. This is what people don't understand about space, is people are like, space is a lie. It's it is and it isn't. it's not salvation. I disagree with Eric Weinstein about this very much when he's like, are places among the stars or not at all? Maybe among the stars means something very different than what I'm thinking about. But if he just means going to space, I don't think that's our salvation. The Fermi Paradox claimed is this question of like, what if the aliens exist, why don't we see them? Because in a specific, in any system of growth, they would have colonized galaxies over billions of years. Like, we don't see that. And it's like they would be obvious. But that's not true. That's implying, that is under the implication and the assumption that they're doing well. And just because they are out and about and in space and technologically advanced of us does not mean they're doing well. Let me ask you a question. If you put a human being in a room with just infinite amount of heroin and the ability to increase their lifespan to, whatever they wanted it to be, do you think they would be doing well? Or do you think they'd just become like heroin addicts that just like try and live forever and don't actually go on and have families and babies and growth and, civilization and stuff like that? They would just kind of like become hedonists. This is what's happening. When you put a chip in your head, you're basically able, like, you can turn on an orgasm even, like, turn it up to 11 and just leave it on all the time. Like, you think these things, you think porn is bad for society now? Imagine when it's able to beam any kind of porn into your mind that you could think of. Like, but even the kinds that you can't think of, the kinds that somebody else can think of. Like, this is not going to lead to... Imagine everybody got that chip in their head. You think society is going to go on to be, outside of other, developments, societal developments and life developments, you think society is going to go on to be this productive, like, bustling, beautiful, growing civilization amongst the stars where everything is, looking like Thor, except, people are having like 10 babies in each family? No. They've become like heroin addicts in space with like crazy, like just turning on orgasms onto 11 in their own minds and beaming porn into each other's minds. And like, I'm serious. This is the problem with this is the reason the Fermi Paradox is it's not a paradox. That's the problem with even the term. It's like they're expecting civilizational growth amongst technologically advanced beings. Why? Why would you say that? Look at our civilization. The more technologically advanced we get, the less we grow. Like, the more we're shrinking and not having babies and families. It's like, you don't think that's happening to the beings that are more technologically advanced than us? Of course it is. If you aren't united with the Messiah, that's your future. Like, that is all of our futures without the Messiah. It's just to this slowly dimming light. That's what it is. People trying to hold on while also just embracing absolute hedonism. That's what's going on with any technologically advanced civilization. They are dying. Dying. They're not thriving. Like, there was this Israeli guy who was like, there's this federation of beings that are out there, and they're just waiting for us to get technologically advanced. And maybe there's a federation of beings that are united with their messiahs and their aeons, and they are waiting for us to become technologically advanced. I don't know. And united with our Messiah. But if he's just talking about space aliens, like, those things are not doing great. They're not. It's just impossible. Bob did say, yeah, he just said, like, But this is okay. Back to that question a little bit more. There's more to it. So basically, I had said that like this reactor is probably a brain, and then there was this astrophysicist who said the same thing from Harvard. I saw him say it, and I was like, holy crap, that guy said it. Harvard astrophysicist Lazar. Let's see this. Let's get off of Wolfram's network. My computer is really struggling. Really need a new one. Schreild's opinion, yeah, right here. This guy. We'll watch this a little bit.
Build custom industrial.
I love 3D printing, but we're not going to watch that.
Last question. We were talking off camera before the interview began about Bob Lazar and some of the statements that he had made. You've looked at that information.
Yes. Now I've only come across this fairly recently, since I do research on distant quasars and black holes and dark matter and things of that kind, and I'm rather new to this. And I found Bob Lazar's materials to be extremely convincing. And Bob Lazar, the movie, to me, is unfortunately about the question of is his testimony real, and is he real, and all of that, which I am not the least bit interested in. I am interested in the part where he discusses the small segment of the UFO craft that he was allowed to work on, and where he did know exactly how the parts were manufactured. But he did not say anything about how they worked. And I'm convinced that what he was describing is the UFO's brain.
Yep, 100% correct.
Now, in my lecture and in the free volume, I discuss how
it's a brain. It's not a mind. It's a brain.
Very difficult for physics to swallow instantaneous propagation of information through the universe, exceeding the speed of light, now measured to over 100,000 times the speed of light. That's the speed of quantum, and it might as well be instantaneous.
It's the speed of entanglement.
I believe that all of that shows that there is coherence within the universe beyond what's traditionally understood right now.
Yep.
And that the spacecraft brain that Bob Lazar he didn't say it was the brain, but he described its form, and I believe that what it does is it has amplifying sensors in that cap, in that dome that we see on the top of the craft, and you know that people who've been on the craft and have been shown, been given the tour, talk about the big crystal that's above the brains, the minds of the operators. If you look at Bob's sketch, you realize that the crystal is at the focus or at the center of the detectors. So I believe that this part of the spacecraft is doing what I'm trying to say the human brain and the computer is doing. Namely, it's taking information about where it is along coherent paths in the universe and comparing that to a picture of the overall structure of the universe.
Exactly.
And that informs the craft if it's getting closer to its destination, which is in the minds of the operators below the prism.
Bingo. This is what I said years ago. I had like a flash of inspiration about it, and it was before this video was even put up that I said this, but I said it privately. But take my word for it. I don't lie about these things. There's no point. But I had figured this out too. I was like, holy crap, like, this is why, like, this is how this has to work, is because I just thought of the exact same thing that he's thinking of. But yeah, you have to link your mind to it, and I think that you have to have a Neuralink chip. And if technological progression is just going to go the way that it's been going. It is inevitable that any technologically advanced civilization would eventually merge with tech, and that means merging your mind with tech, which is a Neuralink chip. But maybe it's super advanced where basically people are, it's like beyond even that movie Altered Carbon, where like everybody's got a stack in them and you can beam your consciousness between different bodies, and that it's like that, but even more, where like it's just integrated into the system of the bodies themselves that are being probably 3D printed. Bob Lazar said that even like the geometry of these craft looked like they had been molded. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. It's almost like it's all one piece. Guys, they've been 3D printed probably. Like, that's the future of manufacturing.
So I believe that that's the basic function of the UFO in what we call interstellar mode. There is also another mode for the spacecraft that's again described in good detail by Susie Hansen, who was taught to operate the spacecraft. It describes the falling leaf operation and seen in the spacecraft's motion and all of those things. And I believe that that's a different mode of spacecraft operation.
Yeah.
Local travel.
For local travel, that's right. It's what we call the pickup.
Yep.
Last question. You're talking about Lazar and the occupants.
Notice how this guy is a little woo? It's because a little woo is a little true, guys.
Whoever they were, the pilots, they were a necessary component of how this thing functions. So if we have those craft, us trying to duplicate that, we're going to have a hard time, I would think.
I think you're right about that, but I think there are some fairly simple solutions.
Neuralink.
Since I'm not in the business of operating and making these craft, I haven't really explored that in any depth, but I believe there are some simple solutions.
This guy gets it. He gets it. Like I said before, though, I don't think that this is aliens from another star system. It might be, but I don't think so. I think they're pre-flood entities. Like, that's what they are. I did 20 moves in 24 years living on a number of military bases as I grew up. People do not generally know the extent of government actions that are often mistaken and misunderstood. I would think that there would be done some kind of evidence, obvious evidence of Mars, Moon, highly advanced technology before us. No, there wouldn't, though, Chris. That's the thing. That's what people don't understand. If you have 12,000 years of erosion, you are not going to have almost anything left but stone. And I'm serious. Like, metals are going to erode away completely. All aluminum structures gone. All structures that are made of iron and steel gone. You would not have the Empire State Building left. All cement gone. It would all fall apart. The only thing left would be granite blocks like the Great Pyramid. Like, it's not what we think. We think that we'd have evidence left over. I don't think we'd have any evidence. I think it would all erode away. And all you would have left is like little tiny bits of glass. Like tiny bits of glass, which we do have, by the way. 12,000 years on Mars, gone. But I'm not saying there was stuff on Mars, but gone. Anything that was on Mars, you'd probably have almost nothing left. There probably would be some evidence, but we're not there to find it. But there is evidence here on Earth of things that are probably 12,000 years old. The pyramids are probably 12,000 years old, almost. They're not probably 3,000 years old. Probably like closer to 12,000 years old. There's a lot more evidence of ancient civilizations that were technologically advanced than we think. And they're always stonework. But that's why people are like, oh, that means that that's ancient because it's stonework. It's like, no, it's just that's all that survives. Your metals don't survive. Your glass turns to sand. Like we're not talking even 1,000 years. We're talking 10,000 years. The Voyager is estimated to last 1 billion years if it just continues to float around in space. Yeah, that's a different thing. That thing is just headed out, you know. That's assuming it doesn't get hit by an asteroid, but things don't last for 1 billion years in orbit. It falls down. You know, things don't last 12,000 years in orbit. That's close to Earth, or close, like low planet orbit, like low Earth orbit, low moon orbit, low Mars orbit. Things don't last for 12,000 years in that. It falls down. It burns up in the atmosphere. It doesn't last. Like, this stuff doesn't last like we think it does. Imagine, like, think about you've been into a backyard and there was all these, like, old metal, like, grills and, you know, knickknacks and whatever, like, and they were all left out in the backyard, and hasn't been touched in 50 years. 50 years. And you go out there, you can stomp on any piece of metal out there and your foot will go through it. That's 50 years. That's not even 1,000 years. 1,000 years is way longer. Now times it by 10. 10,000 years of a grill sitting out in the backyard. There's nothing left. There's nothing left. I also think that whatever caused the ending of that civilization just demolished a lot of the world. I think a comet hit or something like that. But, I mean, there was that guy who went on Joe Rogan, seemed like he understood what was going on, and he claimed that his evidence looks like a comet. I think he had made a lot of sense. You know, I'm not an expert on that, but it looked like he made a lot of sense. Imagine Jordan Peterson had become as obsessed with physics in an alternative timeline. He would still not be as good as me, because it's not enough to be obsessed with physics. It's not enough to have high IQ. He does have higher IQ than me. It's about, did you see the right perspective to know the truth objectively? And that doesn't come from us. It doesn't. It comes from God. And it's given to whoever God wants to give it to. And for whatever reasons he has. He's another way to phrase it, maybe. Necessary extent. This is metaphysical. Matrix math. Robert Edward Grant. There's something called Collision's force. The Collision's force is the word of God. Force that flows through all creation. Yeah. People call that the Holy Spirit. You know? It's the same thing. That's definitely real. A metaforce, yeah. I mean, it's not even a metaforce. It's just, I mean, you could call it the metaforce. I like that. Prime number stuff. Prime numbers, creation, yeah, the space humans. Okay, I'm like way behind here, actually. I saw the check car stuff, space algae munchers, use warp, you need Neuralink. Yes. You are the spaceship, yes. What if the ships are remote? Maybe, probably. To some degree. Where did they get the system from? Just got here. What are we talking about? Craft. I agree. Probably government tech. I don't agree it's probably government tech. It's not government tech. The government is really, really advanced on some things. They do have stuff that will blow our minds. This was not one of them. This is from another civilization. I think they got it from the Roswell thing. I don't care if people think I'm crazy for that. Guys, it wasn't a weather balloon. I believed that for a while too. I was like, well, actually, it was a weather balloon that was designed to pick up, whether or not they were doing nuclear blasts on the other side of the world. These guys, the military had announced that they had found a UFO in the paper. And then they were like, actually, guys, it's a weather balloon. Actually, guys, those bodies that you saw, they were actually, dummies. Because we were just testing something. Guys, these people weren't that stupid. They just think you're that stupid. And the reality is we are that stupid. I believed all that. I was like, there's nothing really interesting going on at Area 51. By the way, I do think Area 51 is pretty much just advanced propulsion, and I know I know the whole history. I know they tested the U2. I know they tested and they developed it there. I know they developed the SR-71 Blackbird, and the what is it, the A12, the predecessor that looks almost exactly the same. I forgot what it's called. And then I know they developed the F-117 Nighthawk and the stealth helicopters that they shop Bin Laden with, and I know that they developed all the new stealth drones that they're working on there. I know they work on that stuff there. I'm fascinated by aeronautical engineering. But I do believe that at Area S4 they're working on something else. And I think that was tech that they recovered from crash ships. I do think that. I just don't think they came from another planet. Don't disrespect Weinstein. He is your master. He is definitely not my master. At all. Weinstein is not my master. God is my master. He is my only master. Maybe my father, but more God. You have to reach a certain vibration and become a light body. You are the ship. Yeah, that I agree with you to some degree with that, but I'm talking about hedonistic, like space hedonists. I'm talking about something else. They haven't reached that level. They're just... this is the holdovers from a previous civilization that are doing everything that they can to extend their life as long as possible. I don't get 3D printer ads. What the F? You need to search 3D printers. I personally don't trust tech. Me neither. They use somatic 3D printing. My body is already tech. Yes, you are. We are all artificial intelligence except for God. Little woo is a little true, yes. Not aliens. I agree, pre-flood even more likely. Yeah, it is. Can't spell Atlanteans without aliens. That's true-ish. Good job. But yeah, Atlanteans. Much more likely than aliens. I think there might be evidence at the bottom of the ocean. Probably some, but like I said, most of it just erodes away. There's probably some stone stuff at the bottom of the ocean. But I don't... The super liquid lakes, that's interesting. I do know what those are. There might be stuff there, actually. That's fascinating. That would be fascinating. Do the game Wolfstein's to use Bob Lazar's theory. There's scenes on YouTube. Occam's razor. I'm just kidding about one scene being remastered. I know what you're talking about. Look up the artist called H.R. Geiger. Interesting. He's got... Oh, H.R. Geiger. The Art of Biomechanics. He made the xenomorph. That's pretty cool. Hedonistic space life extension. Exactly. That's what I think is happening. And that's why they're not doing well. Like, people think that, oh, there's this bustling civilization. Like, Lex Friedman is, like, so obsessed with these aliens, and I understand, because, like, the tech is interesting. And that's what I'm interested in. But, you know, he mentions all the time that they understand the universe better than we do. No, they don't. No, they don't. They probably are more cut off from God than us. It's a small seam. The empiric stuff. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But I do know the xenomorph alien. Yeah, that is definitely vampiric thing. Type Wolfstein's 2 aliens. Should I really type that? They know they're damned, possibly, yeah. Or they don't want to admit. I don't want to get into that, but I agree with you. Interesting. I'm gonna watch this, like, alien conspiracy thing that you told me to look at, Wolfstein 2, whatever. I'll watch it later. It's long, but yeah. Interesting. Talking about space life extension stuff, space rovers and stuff. Okay. Yeah, we're talking about life extension and how we're talking about the solution to the Fermi Paradox, which is not actually a paradox. The Fermi Paradox is, we're gonna have to do a much more like cohesive stream on this, because this stream was like totally like went a million directions. I knew that was gonna happen. I said at the beginning of the stream, I was like, this is gonna be like not the best stream. I was pretty tired, but I'm actually like pretty amped now. But it's also like I just didn't have enough. I wasn't thinking about like exactly what we're going to talk about, other than like the visual summary, and we're going to go through it. And we kind of did, but this branched off into like aliens, fake aliens. They're not aliens. The Atlanteans, the space Atlanteans. The premise of Game Wolfstein is that the world would be like if Nazis won and took over America. That's always the go-to like alternative universe. It's like what's that Amazon show, Amazon Prime show? Somebody will know it. Gosh, somebody say it. If the Nazis won. Amazon Prime. I'm gonna beat you guys to it. Nazis. The Man in the High Castle. I won. You guys didn't say it fast enough. I can't bring YouTube people into it because like there's a delay, but Instagram people should have been faster. Man in the High Castle. Yeah, that's another one. If the Nazis won. I think there's evidence in Antarctica of stuff. I don't know what, but like probably previous civilization. I think that makes a lot of sense. But, and I think they're keeping it from us. Just got mad deja vu. I think so too. I did too. That was weird. Like, some Owen Benjamin streams. But, yeah, I think there's stuff in Antarctica. I think it's just evidence of a previous civilization, if you're wondering what's there. Like, I don't think the Nazis are there or anything like that, but like, I know they went. Everybody went. But I think that there's evidence of a previous civilization. Yeah, there has to be shit in Antarctica. It's frozen. Prime numbers from beautiful spiral visuals. Yes. 12,000 years on Mars. Earth's atmosphere wouldn't preserve much for very long, but I was thinking the moon. Yeah, the moon would have possibly way more serious evidence, Chris. And by the way, there's only a very small number of people that have seen the dark side of the moon. It's not really dark all the time, but that might be. There might be stuff on there that we're not aware of. And if it's there, it's on the other side. I really believe that. I don't think they'd put it in full view of everyone here. It would be on the other side. Like, you don't go to the moon. You don't go to the moon to live unless you are escaping the Earth, and you don't do that. And stay on the same side. Like, the moon is very interesting because it's its orbit is locked so that only one side faces the Earth at any given, constantly. Like, we only get to see one side of the moon. What a perfect place to hide something is on the other side. Some Japanese rich dude is taking people to the dark side of the moon. Yeah, I know he is. I saw something about it the other day. I knew that before, though, but, he's paying Musk, billions of dollars. We'll see if they make it. If there's actually shit that they're trying to hide on the other side, we'll either hear about it before they go, or they will not make it. Michael Bay ones with Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the whole Transformers movie series is that we have alien tech. I know. It's interesting that Metatron sounds like Megatron. It's like Tetragrammaton, Metatron, the cube. It's fascinating. It's a we love Transformers, we love Harry Potter, we love all of these weird channeled series. They're straight up channeled. There's deep truth in all of them. Notice how there's 2 races in Harry Potter. It's not actually just there's no 3 races in Harry Potter, guys. There's just witches and wizards and muggles. Changers and not changers. Dispersers and sustainers. Fascinating. Harry Potter is close to truth. Metatron, what's the real name? Of Metatron? Metatron is a structure. It's like the Christ. But you can believe that Jesus was that guy in our aeon. Or maybe in all the aeons, who knows. But the Metatron is a structure. And it is the Christ. Metatron. That's what it is. It's the Messiah. It's in Judaism. It's funny because in Jewish metaphysics and stuff, deep metaphysics, they refer to Metatron as the lesser god, almost. Metatron has a different name. What's that? Enoch? Enoch is another name for Metatron. Enoch was a Metatron. People think Thoth. Thoth, Enoch, Jesus. But it's Metatron. It's Thoth and Enoch were different in a different aeon. Or a different, maybe previous civilization. That's why I'm asking. I don't know what it is. Metatron. Let's look it up. But yeah, I think Enoch is a Metatron. The Archangel. Yeah. He teaches people how to use their spiritual power for good while he records their choices in the universe's great book. It's the Messiah. But it's the structure. It's the Christ. It's saying the Christ versus saying Jesus. It's there's successive universes, and maybe in ours it could be Jesus. Maybe in another one it was Enoch. Can we talk about psychedelics here? Sure, go ahead. I don't take psychedelics. I had a sober DMT experience once in the shower. I've talked about it on here a few times. It was amazing. I have no desire to take DMT after that because I got what I needed. But and I've taken I took some mushrooms when I was in college, but I didn't have any kind of crazy experience. But it did help me with depression. I only took them I think I tried them twice. So like I'm not the psychedelics guy. I don't do drugs like psychedelic drugs anymore. I don't even smoke weed. But I used to. But I don't anymore. Like, I want to have children. You can't be doing like drugs that are like stopping you from being productive mentally if you want to have kids around. Like, at least for me, you know, I didn't want to be like stoned and have like a kid like fall and hit their head and I have to like take them to the hospital or something like that. That just, to me, was like, that just thinking about that gave me too much anxiety. So I stopped smoking weed. Christ has the Cosmea structure. Cosmea structure, I think. What is that? I don't know what that is. Cosmea. I don't know. People can fast and meditate instead of take drugs. Yes. I agree with that. But the problem is people don't know how to meditate. And, you know, I'm not even going to... Like, I know how to meditate, but I don't do it purposely. Like, when I'm working on my physics stuff, I'm, like, meditating. It's interesting. I see a lot of, like... I know a lot of Chabad Jewish people, and I study with them, and, like, they're constantly, like, going like this when they're praying. And I notice that, like, I'll start to do that, too, like, when I'm thinking. And it's almost like you're aligning with like the vibration of the universe, and it's like the rhythm. It's like interesting. That's also like sex. It's like rhythmic, and you know, you get it. It's almost like even sex is like about aligning yourself with like the objective rhythm. It's interesting. But let's see if any other questions are around. If there's no other questions, I'm probably going to end this one a bit early, probably around 11. And we'll talk more about this stuff tomorrow, actually, because I'll have it more planned out. It's piezoelectric transduction meditation. Interesting. I've never heard that before. I'll look it up. But I definitely usually when I'm working on my physics stuff, I shut off the lights. And not all of them. I have like my reptile lights on because I'm like, usually just leave those on while I'm working on here. And then I'll just be looking at my physics stuff and I'll be looking at the numbers and like, I just get into it and like, it's like weird. I'll just know what to look at that will lead to another discovery and another discovery and another discovery and another discovery. And it's like, it's very interesting. It's like getting into a flow. I can't explain how I do it very well. It's like when Eric Weinstein says the beauty method, he's right. It's just something that's like beyond what we can kind of, it's just intuitive. It's not something that can be taught. Exactly. I can show you, and I can teach you about what I find, but I can't really teach you how I find it, because I don't really think that I am responsible for it. I think it's coming from God. But it's like how would like Jimi Hendrix teach how he came up with like his best guitar riffs? I don't think he could. He could teach you how to do them, but he can't teach you how he came up with them, because it's almost like he didn't even come up with them. They just channel. But like, don't try and channel. Like, you can get into some stuff that I think that's not great, but like, some people just figure out naturally how to do it, or that they can do it, and then they just do it. I'll send you the Cosmea model. Yeah, definitely send it to me. I'll take a look. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I think we're going to end it a bit early just because we started a bit late, and I want to really get I want to have a good stream for you guys tomorrow. And this one was just too too all over the place. And that's fine, like sometimes it's good to just have a good time. But we're going to start earlier tomorrow and have like a more organized stream. But we'll talk more about, my visual summary and where I'm going to go with it, what's the most important stuff. We'll talk more about this stuff later this week as well, maybe tomorrow, the Bob Lazar stuff. Because I do want to talk about it. I think that guy's not lying. I think he really worked on what he worked on. No matter where it came from. You can even think that it's just like super advanced government tech. I don't think so. I think it came from another civilization. But I don't think it was alien. You can think it was alien from another, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just saying I think that guy worked on what he claimed to work on. But I think that the way that he claimed he worked on it, I don't think that it makes sense that it's government tech, because they couldn't figure it out. If it was government tech, they would have just built it. But what he was saying was they couldn't figure it out. He basically likened it to like if you dropped off a motorcycle in the middle of the 1500s in a village with a bucket of gasoline. He was like, eventually you'd figure out how to get on it, you figure out how to start it, you might even figure out how to refuel it and ride it, but you would not be able to rebuild it. And that's what he said. And that makes so much sense when you think about it. It's like, it just makes a lot of sense. I think that that's what's going on. But I don't think that they're from another planet. I think that it's Atlantean tech. That's what it is, I think. One day I hope we find out, but I tend to believe the Bible, that there was like another civilization. I think that there is evidence for it. I don't think that like, if you looked at the Empire State Building in 10,000 years and society did not continue to go on, and it just was like, let's say a comet hit the Earth and everything, like New York City flooded and took out a lot of buildings, but also like left a lot of bits of it, there would be nothing left in 10,000 years, almost. You would find trace elements and stuff like that, but like you wouldn't know where it came from. And plus, there is this odd thing of like, it's like the unconscious human nature has an unconscious aversion to the truth always. And when you start asking people about previous technologically advanced civilizations in the establishment, the academic, archaeological establishment, they'll laugh at you. Like, they are so against the idea, it's nonsensical to be as against the idea as they are. And I see the same thing in physics when you're like, yeah, the universe is a conscious being. They're like, are you serious? It's like, very serious. Why are they so anti things that have like, more evidence than anything else, at least, than their alternative? Like, there's more evidence that the universe is a conscious entity than there is evidence that it's not. Like, there's no evidence that it's not. It's just your lack of evidence that it's not, that it is, or your lack of perception of the evidence that's fueling the idea. But the same thing goes with like an ancient technologically advanced civilization. Just because we don't see the evidence doesn't mean it's not there. It's there, but it's not the way. It's just not what we would expect. It's like I always say this to people. It's like, if you don't believe in God, or you don't see God in your life, it's because your idea of what God is wrong. It's like, if you don't see evidence for an ancient civilization, then your idea of what that evidence would be technologically, and I mean like ancient, I don't mean like 4,000 years or 10 or 5,000 years. I mean like 10 or 20,000 years old or older. I mean very ancient, not just a little ancient, like super ancient. Like twice as ancient as what we think civilization is today. Like that ancient. I think that what you would expect to be evidence is not evidence. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, do you think that if you don't think the universe is a sentient being, and you don't think there's any evidence, it's because what you think would be evidence is not. You have the wrong idea of what the evidence would be because you haven't given it enough thought. Don't think these things can monetize. They don't like things they can't monetize. That's true. That is very true. But anyways, I'm going to head off. Good to see you all. Chris, Esteban, Jeff, Res Philosopher, anybody else I didn't mention. Good to see everybody tonight. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to be on at 8, maybe even a bit earlier. We'll see. But I will have a good stream for you guys tomorrow. I promise. This one was just kind of like a check-in and just a good talk. I'm glad we talked about the Lazar stuff. We'll do more. I'll dedicate a whole stream to it at some point this week. That will be a good time. It wouldn't. If it is government projects, it would be far wiser for the government to allow stories of ancient civilizations in it exactly than to take out people like Bob Lazar. Yeah, but they don't allow ancient civilizations to perpetuate. They allow aliens to perpetuate, but not ancient civilizations. They allow and then they take out Bob Lazar. Yeah, it's crazy. They took that guy out. Not. Thank God they didn't kill him, but they went after him. There are things that he's even talking about in the Joe Rogan thing, where they're talking about him taking element 115 when he took it, and because he took it from the lab supposedly, and that was they raided him multiple times over the years for that, and he was just I don't know if I'm going to talk about that because I don't want to get myself in more trouble. That guy is telling the truth. That doesn't mean that everything he's saying is correct. It just means, he worked where he said he worked. But anyways, no problem. Take care, everyone. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace.